What if I told you the dollar, the euro, even your retirement fund, all of it is a sinking ship? Mark Moss says there's only one lifeboat left, Bitcoin. And once you step into it, there's no going back.
Hello everyone, this is BTC Insight and welcome to yet another deep dive into BTC Insight. Before we jump in, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't yet. You won't want to miss this.
Mark Moss starts with the most important point. We buy Bitcoin and we put it in cold storage. There is no substitute. There is no second best. Everything else, whether it's altcoins, stocks, bonds, or commodities, pales in comparison to the certainty of Bitcoin as a fixed supply, censorship-resistant asset. For the individual, this means the strategy is clear. Buy Bitcoin and hold it. That's your base layer. That's your safety net. That's the foundation of financial sovereignty. But Moss also recognizes that some people, especially entrepreneurs and creators, generate surplus wealth beyond what they need to secure their own financial future. For those people, there's room for risk, experimentation, and even philanthropy. That's where the conversation expands into the corporate and institutional world.
We buy Bitcoin and we put it to cold storage. There is no replacement for that. There is no second best. We buy Bitcoin and we hold it, number one. But as I said, there is some room for risk for some people if you're a creator and you've created some excess. Now, in this treasury space, I break it down into three types of companies. The first type of company is a treasury allocator. This is Tesla, right? Tesla is a company. They're a car company. They're making robots now, whatever. And they take some of that money and they allocate it, their savings, into Bitcoin. The second type of treasury allocator, in my opinion, is a hybrid. So now I have an existing business. So let's say Semler Scientific. I'm a medical company, and I'm running a Bitcoin treasury company. And so a lot of the companies that we see popping up are sort of like that. Saquon's is sort of like that. Nakamoto is going to be like that, right? And so that's sort of maybe the most traditional model that we're seeing pop up right now is a business matched with a treasury company. And the third type is what I think is the most preferable way, and I'll talk about the most. The third type is the pure play Bitcoin treasury strategy, and that's Strategy, and that's Metaplanet. And really, they're the only two. And I think the company that I'm working with now, Satsuma, will be also that type of a company, a pure play company. And so what they're doing, and this is, you asked the question, what niche are they serving? What's the purpose of this vehicle? The niche that Strategy, let's talk about them because they're pioneering the strategy. The niche that they're serving is understanding that there is 97% of capital today cannot buy Bitcoin. As Bitcoiners, we're like, dude, just sell your freaking stocks and buy the Bitcoin. Yes, of course. Not everybody can do that. We have to understand that most people have money going from their paycheck into their 401k and their mutual fund and their pension or whatever it is all around the world. And they can't just do that. And so 97% of that capital is stuck buying either equities or debt. And so we have all these pools of liquidity that is basically dying. And I would just say, just jumping back a little bit, I would say that I believe both you and I, Nico, are aligned. We want to change the world with Bitcoin. And a question that we probably get asked the most out of anything is, how do we orange pill more people? How do we reach more people with this? What I've learned from being in technology a long time and deploying capital is the best products and really where you get mass adoption is when people don't realize they're using the technology, right? And so I've often thought as I'm deploying venture capital, it's like, we don't need more Bitcoin products. We need Bitcoin in more products, right? And so we have all these people who are just going passively through life. And I don't think it's right. They should wake up and manage their own money, but they don't. And this money is going into these funds and these allocators are managing that. And it's all losing value compared to the rate of monetary debasement. Bonds are not keeping up. Most equities are not keeping up either. And we have a serious epidemic on our hands where these people are not pushing enough value into the future, and they're going to have a hard time in life. As we know, here in California, there's a big homeless problem. 50% of the people going onto Skid Row being homeless are baby boomers. It didn't work for them. So how do we fix that? Well, we, of course, buy Bitcoin, but most of them can't. So we have all these pools of capital, $400 trillion stuck behind different regulatory modes and mandates. What Saylor is doing with the strategy is creating niche individual products, Bitcoin-backed products, to reach into the credit and equity markets. And in my opinion, that is a massive, massive, massive good for society, for the world, because it's getting the Bitcoin lifeboat to these people who need it the most and aren't able to get it. And that's the pure play Bitcoin strategy that I see.
Moss draws a powerful analogy. Imagine you lived in Turkey as the lira collapsed 98% against the US dollar in just a few years. You'd rush to convert your savings into dollars to escape the sinking ship. But here's the key. Once you leave the lira for the dollar, do you ever go back? Of course not. You've left that system behind. That's how Moss frames Bitcoin. Once you move from fiat into Bitcoin, you're no longer thinking about selling back into dollars. 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. The only people measuring it in fiat terms are stuck in the old mindset. For Bitcoiners, the risk-free rate is Bitcoin itself. There is no bear market, only temporary fiat volatility.
When are you going to sell Bitcoin? But they're still thinking of the old system like they're in the fiat system. And I put this actually on X today. If I was in Turkey and I'm watching the Turkish lira plummet, like rapidly, I need to get out quickly. And so if I could, I'd probably move into dollars. And so I've left the Turkish lira. It's down, 98% to the dollar in 5 years. I've left the Turkish lira. I went to dollars. At what point do I sell the dollars and buy the lira back? Like never. Like I left the Turkish lira. I'm in the dollar system now. And I think we have to understand it like that. Like we're leaving the dollar system and we're moving to Bitcoin. There is no point that we sell and go back. So number one, recognize the opportunity and be that first mover advantage. Number one. Now, for us as Bitcoiners, there is no bear market because 1 Bitcoin is worth 1 Bitcoin. That's only a fiat maxi that thinks about it in those terms. So we've moved into the new system. Now, that is our risk-free rate for us. That's our hurdle rate, right? We believe in this. Bitcoin is 1 Bitcoin. But as Saylor would say as well, in portfolios, there's room for a little bit of risk. And so really, I think there's 2 types of people in this world. You have consumers and you have creators. The creators create more than they consume. That's why Warren Buffett worked till he was 93. He has all the money in the world. As a matter of fact, why do you think all billionaires still work? Because they're creators. That's what creators do. And so creators will have a surplus. What do I do with the surplus? Consumer mindset thinks about trying to save. And so what happens is once I've created enough wealth for myself, then I'm probably going to want to invest in some other things. I'm going to want to help new entrepreneurs get going. And I want to build this world, this future that I envision. As terrible and supervillain as I think Bill Gates is, he is building what his vision is. Right. And so at some point, we want to then get to that level. And so there's probably some room in our portfolio for philanthropy and for risk. And then we can move further out into the risk curve. So, I've been deploying capital for 5 years now as a venture capital investor in the Bitcoin space through the Bitcoin Opportunity Fund. And so we're investing into companies that are growing. Right. And I think that Bitcoin Treasuries is that next evolution. And the normies are those who don't get this and don't understand this. We might call them NPCs, right? That's what the younger generation calls them, right? The non-player characters. And so they're going through life on a pre-programmed track. Go to school, get good grades, save for retirement, listen to the FDA, eat the food pyramid, all of those things. And those people are just having their paycheck deducted every 2 weeks. And it's being invested by who knows who doing who knows what. Or now in the United States, right, we've seen the public sector grow so much, so now it's in like public pensions and things like that. And so most people don't have access to that money. Now, could they, Nico? I mean, could we wake them up, unplug them from the matrix? Could they wake up and say, I don't want to do this anymore, quit my job, cash out my 401k, pay the penalties? Yeah, they could do that. The reality is most of them won't. And so we have the majority of people in the matrix, sleepwalking through life, having their money passively invested for them through these funds. And so as I made the case, about 97% of that money is not able to buy commodities. So the fund managers, let's say that if we can reach the fund managers, but I saw BlackRock is saying that they're going to talk to their advisors and tell them they should start allocating to Bitcoin. Sure, but most of those funds, those pensions, et cetera, cannot allocate to commodities. And so that's really the problem. Now, we have other problems as well. So a lot of these funds can allocate to equities. So like a Bitcoin ETF could reach them. But a lot of these funds are only credit funds. So they'll think bonds, all types of different bonds, corporate bonds, public bonds, et cetera, right? Credit instruments. And so how do we reach those? And what are they buying? If you remember the movie The Big Short, if you saw that, it was about the 2008 housing collapse, great financial crash. You saw that these banks were taking all of these loans, creating CDOs, collateralized debt obligations, and it's basically mashing them all together so we don't really know what's in that basket. So we don't have any way to understand what the risk is. So I'm loaning money out of the debt obligation against a basket of who knows what risk I have, and it's under collateralized, which of course we saw the entire banking system collapse from that. So I'm going to invest, most people through these types of funds are invested into this unknown risk, under collateralized at 3 to 5% yield. And what Saylor's offering the credit market is a pristine asset, 5 to 1 or 10 to 1 over collateralized, paying 10%. Yep. And so the risk level went down, the yield went up, and these people have hope, right? They have hope of the future now today.
So what's the big takeaway from Mark Moss's perspective? It's this. Bitcoin is not just about individual sovereignty. It's about systemic transformation. While the best strategy for individuals remains simple, buy Bitcoin and hold it, there's an even bigger mission unfolding. By creating treasury models, Bitcoin-backed financial products, and pure-play holding companies, we can unlock the $400 trillion trapped in the legacy system and redirect it toward a future built on sound money. Moss reminds us that we're not just here to speculate. We're here to change the world, to provide lifeboats for those who don't even know they need saving, to build the bridge from a dying fiat system into a thriving Bitcoin economy. And perhaps most importantly, to recognize that once you step out of the old system and into Bitcoin, there's no going back. 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. That's the new paradigm.
That's it for today's look into BTC Insight. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay on top of all the latest insights. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll catch you in the next one.